Welcome to the Mindset with Morgan podcast. I am so grateful you're here. I'm Morgan, and I am a multiple seven-figure entrepreneur who adores all things business. I love building great teams and great companies who benefit the world. I've been building and running startups for nearly 15 years and have learned a few things along the way. I'm a teacher by heart, and I'm so excited to share with you. I'm also human, and I need a good pick-me-up and mindset shift before meetings, tough conversations, and sometimes just on my morning commute. My hope is that you can use this podcast as a quick mindset reset before you start your day or whenever you need a mindset shift. I also love a good funny story with a helpful lesson involved, and that is what you'll get here. Now let's learn, grow, and have a few laughs. Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to get that promotion or get to the next place in your career that you've been wanting to get to. So it's 2025. I hope it is going well for you so far. For me, I feel like 2025 kind of really begins for me in February because I have a lot going on typically in January. My husband and I got married in January, so we typically take a trip every year in the beginning of January, and my world kind of begins that middle of January, and then we have an annual trip with his company that's the end of January. So I get like a good week or so of solid work in, and then I feel like 2025 really began, or work-wise for me in February, which is by intention. It took a lot of time for it to be that way, but I'm really excited because I'm actually on a cleanse right now, and I think this is something that you can incorporate into your health or business. But I'm the kind of person that when I get on a negative path, and for me that was not great eating, wasn't really working out, I was traveling, my system, my schedule was out of whack, and I felt it. I could tell I was not treating my body the way that I should. And for me, and I don't know if this is the same for you as well, when I'm slowly headed down a not ideal direction, or just not the direction that I intended, I used to have this idea that I would wake up one day and change my habits just based out of will, and that just didn't work. And as we know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. So I realized for myself, and this could, like I said, be in business or in your life, I have to do some sort of cleanse or major reset for the ship to start going the other direction. And, in regards to health, when I start eating fries more often and, not working out every day because I skip one day, then two, then what's three? And just, it's like the compound effect, right? By Darren Hardy, but slowly in the wrong direction. I can't just change directions. I have to do something major, and a cleanse is really what works for me. Like 10 days of literally cutting out alcohol, sugar, dairy, red meat. Like, it depends on the cleanse you're on, but that's what this one is doing. Tons of shakes, a really regimented diet, lots of vitamins, working out every day. And, that major shift really helps me kind of veer the ship in the correct direction, or the direction that I want to go. So in regards to your life or business, if it's now, February in 2025, and it's not going the way that you intended, if you, said, hey, I set all these goals, I planned on my 2025 looking a certain way, and it's not looking that way, first of all, great job identifying that. Awareness is half the battle. Now, what do you need to do to shift the boat in the right direction, in the direction you want to go? What step do you need to take? Maybe it's a few small steps. Maybe it's a few small decisions. Maybe you need a full-blown cleanse, right? However that looks for you in business. So, like I said, everyone's different, but I've learned over the years that I need like a major reset to actually shift the direction that I'm going. Maybe you need the same. Maybe you just need a small change, which for you could be, depending on what you're looking to do, waking up 30 minutes earlier tomorrow and, getting that report done. Whatever work, life, business, health, whatever it is that you're trying to do, It's important to learn your style and what works best for you so you can do more of that. But anyway, 2025, here we are, and I'm going to be talking about promotions today, or how to get where you want to in work. So I'm going to give you the things that worked well for me. Over the years, since I was in my teens, I moved up really quickly at work. Whatever role I was in, I kind of just embodied. I have natural leadership capabilities. I've learned that pretty quickly on. I like to be in leadership. I like to be in charge. I like to teach. It's just hardwired in me. Everyone is hardwired differently. This is just something that's been hardwired in me. Now, either way, if you want to get somewhere where you want to go, right? If there's a place you want to go in work, in business, in the job that you're in, these are my top tips for getting there. Like I said, based on my experience. So tip number 1, I highly suggest that you act like you're in the role already. Now, how do you do this without being weird or getting in trouble for doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, for example? So, for example, if you are, in customer service and the customer service supervisor role opens up and you want it, right? You apply for it, you're very interested in it, or maybe it's not even open yet, but you know that that's where you want to get to next. First of all, do not talk yourself out of it by going, oh, well, the person who's in that role's been in it for 20 years. She's not retiring anytime soon. Stop it. Don't think like that, right? Crazy things happen every day. Things change. It's wild. Every time you think like that, you're kind of just shutting the door on yourself. So don't do that. If you want to move up, right, and that's where you want to get to, you've got to show up every day as if you are already in that role. What I mean by that is don't just walk up to another customer service rep in your department and fire them. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that when you get out of the car in the parking lot, stand tall and walk in like you already have that role. Be positive. Say hi to everybody. Act like a leader, right? Ask everyone how their day is going, right? Offer to help if you see someone needs help. Or if there's a department issue, right? People keep running into maybe the same problem. Figure out how to fix it. Act like a leader. Take initiative. Just tell yourself you're already in that role. Dress like you're in the role, right? Show up as if you're there already. That's always been a huge help for me, is just kind of just acting like I'm there already. You don't want to be obnoxious or anything like that, but it's more internal. You want to embody how somebody in that role would act. My second tip, show up early and stay late. I really don't know a shortcut for something like this. Now, what I mean is you've got to be the hardest working person in your department, in the room. If you want something, you've got to act like you want it. And if you don't really want it, you're not going to show up that way. So when I worked in a manufacturing company. Stephanie, cut this part out. So showing up to work as the first, Stephanie, cut all of this out. I messed up. So when I worked at a manufacturing company in my early 20s, I literally was one of the first people to get there, kind of on accident. I'll tell you, how it happened. I had started working there. No joke, you guys, I started in probably the weirdest job on the planet. It was a company that made dyes. They actually cut out like pieces of different materials for all sorts of different reasons. They use different shapes in the automotive industry and in all sorts of industries. And this particular one was for a vacuum. This piece that got cut out was for a vacuum, and they looked like ducks. We called them the duck pieces. And the dye, it was a circle for the little, it was called punches, went in to almost make it look like eyeballs. So the shape was, let's say, like a square looking duck thing and then 2 eyeballs in it. That was just how the shape happened to look. And when the dye punched down, it didn't fully get the eyeballs out. And we wanted to deliver a good product, or they wanted to deliver a good product to the vacuum company. So somebody had to take literally like a needle, like a sharp tool needle thing, and poke the eyes out of this paper piece. I don't know what the material was. It was like a thick paper, really thick paper. You couldn't really rip it. So I started at this company poking the eyeballs out of this piece of paper. Like literally, hand me one, two, hand me one, two. And I made a game with myself, like how many hundreds of these could I pop out in a day? You guys, that if you could not imagine a more like boring, feeling not purposeful job on the planet. However, I got there and I rocked those ducks' eyeballs. I loved it. I got to know the people. I talked to people while I was doing this. I listened, I learned, I wanted to know everything. I went in there like a sponge, and that's always how I've acted when I go to work is I act like a sponge. I want to know everything because your job becomes so much easier when you understand what's going on around you and other people's roles too, because they all come together, right? You don't live in a vacuum, no pun intended with the vacuum pieces. You're a team and you all work together, and while your job may not require you to know certain things, your job becomes a heck of a lot easier, and you are a lot more resourceful at solving problems when you understand what is going on around you. But you have to be curious, you have to ask questions, and you have to listen, and you have to read. So that's what I did. I listened, I read, I learned everything I could. And one day I was in the office with the office manager, and she was doing billing, and I started asking questions about that. So I asked, can I start helping you with some billing when I get done with my stuff for the day? And she said, yes. So that's how I started just doing more and more and more. Now, I was also full-time in college, and I wanted to be full-time at work as well. So I remember I went to my boss and I said, I have a proposal for you. My classes this semester are, let's say, I think they were from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I think they were kind of in the middle of the day. So I said, what if I come to work at 6:30 in the morning and I work until 8:30 before I have to go to work or go to school, and then I come back and I work the rest of my day to get 8 hours, and I stay till I think it was like 7 p.m. And that way I can be full-time at school and full-time at work. And I wanted that because I think I needed the benefits or something like that, or 401k. I wanted to be full-time status at work. And she said, okay, as long as I could get my work done, in those hours and it wasn't going to affect anything, then it was, okay. And what I found is that being the first person there and the last person to leave was I kind of got to see everything, and I learned so much more. At the end of the day, when they were, UPS, FedEx would come and we had to get everything out as quickly as possible. I think the last pickup was at 7 p.m. You had everyone out in this shop. Like I said, it was a manufacturing company doing everything they could to get the last pieces out to make shipment to get to where they needed to go on time. I'd run out there and do that with everybody. You guys, by the time I left this company, which I left for a multitude of reasons, maybe one day I'll do a personal episode, but when I left, I was the person telling the guys in the shop who'd been working there for 30 plus years what time to come to work the next day. And what I mean by that is I was in a supervisory role. I ended up with an office overlooking the entire manufacturing plant and was actually involved in the logistics of what was going on from start to finish. I loved it. And I'm not with that job anymore. I left that job for personal reasons. But anyway, as far as work goes, I was the first one there and last one to leave. And I worked really hard. And I showed that I cared. And that is what really prompted me to get more and more responsibility as I showed that I could keep handling it. My next advice for you is to take initiative. Do not wait to be asked to do something. If you recognize that something has to be done, go ahead and fix it. You guys, there's nothing. I'm in leadership now. Obviously, I've run companies. I own companies. When someone who works for me, and this doesn't happen very often because the second I get a whiff that anyone has this sort of attitude, I either don't hire them, I try to sniff it out in the interview, or they're gone pretty quickly after they start. If I get a whiff that someone doesn't have initiative, I do not want them in my company. I do not want them working for me, because it is very, very challenging to work with people who don't have initiative. If you can show that you have initiative, you already are 10 steps ahead of so many others. And what I mean by that is, if you recognize a problem, do not keep solving the problem over and over and over again. It could be as simple as a weekly report that you get. And every time you get this weekly report, maybe it's an automatic report that's outputted by a system, you notice that column F is always wrong. So you've come up with your own little fix around, right? And you know, okay, this column is always wrong, so I need to, carry the one, add to, whatever. Stop fixing the same problem over and over again. You guys, this drives me nuts, because little problems, it's the compound effect, become big problems over a month, years, a decade, right? Of you fixing this little report. I know this is so tiny, I made the example up, right? But you need to do something to not only fix the problem, but prevent it from ever happening again. And this is how companies can grow and scale. Whether it be your company, someone else's company, you're a manager in the company, you work in the company. You are a part of that company's success. So you need to make sure that you are showing up every day and putting your best foot forward. And if you see something isn't working and you have the capability to fix it, go to the person, or if you don't, go to the person who can fix it and propose a solution. Take initiative. If you notice that Jerry continues to, screw up his task every week, and it's simply because no one's trained him yet, offer to train Jerry. Train him yourself, right? Take initiative, especially if you have the resources and can do it. If you see something is broken, fix it. If you keep fixing something over and over again, do something to prevent the problem. I have another podcast on this. The concept is called Faraday's Ladder, and I think the podcast episode is called How to Always Be an A Player or something like that. It talks about that ladder, and it's really, really important, and it's something I use with most new hires. Check it out. It dives more into that concept. So, what else? My last and final piece of advice for you, if you are looking to get a promotion, if you are looking to grow in the role that you're in, is to exhaust all options before you go and ask for help. Now, here's the thing. You'll hear all the time, ask for help, ask for help. If you run into a problem, ask for help. Yes, of course. If you hit a roadblock, yes, ask for help. But make sure you have literally exhausted every option and tool at your disposal first. Do not turn to learned helplessness and take the easy button and just ask someone right away. First, do what you can to figure it out yourself, because here's the thing. 2 things are going to happen. The first is you're actually going to learn along the way. You're going to teach yourself. You're going to find the resources. And typically when you're trying to figure out a problem, you learn other things as you're delving into something. Maybe you learn something that needs to be fixed. Maybe you learn something about the company that you didn't know before. Either way, exhaust all options. Google, right? The other day, somebody emailed me and said, hey, do you know what the status is on this? And it was like a long acronym. And I easily could have said, emailed back, I don't know what that means. Or can you tell me what that means? That would not be helpful, right? So I Googled it and I looked it up and I knew the industry we were in. So I knew that word was probably relevant to the industry of this particular company. And I found it myself. So not only did I figure it out myself, I also learned something along the way. I learned, oh, that's what that is. And what's so funny is the reticular activator, the red car thing. I started seeing that acronym everywhere. And then I used it. So yeah, you really learn something along the way when you exhaust all options. Second, your boss thinks you're pretty freaking amazing. Now here's the thing. If you get stuck, you've exhausted all options and it's just not happening, you cannot figure it out, well then yes, reach out, pick up the phone, get your answer, right? Now, another thing that drives me nuts is recently we had an employee who just straight up didn't do something they were supposed to. And we found out it's because she didn't know how. She never asked anybody, she just didn't do it. Do you know how detrimental that can be to a company by not having a task done, especially something with a deadline? In this case, it was compliance to a state, right? Luckily, I have checks and balances in place to figure that out, but sometimes it's a little too late before you find out. As far as checks and balances and training, that's going to be a whole other episode, which I'm really excited to record. But anyway, these are my tips on how to get where you want to go, impress your boss, get that promotion, right? The biggest thing, you guys, is you've got to show up and you've got to act like you want it. And you've got to really, really care. You've got to be present. You've got to be focused. You have to want to learn. You are not going to just show up one day and demand a raise or ask to move up and not have any reason to back it up. You've got to be a hard worker. You've got to get there early. You've got to be there mentally and physically. And there's a difference between being engaged and just being there, right? And you've got to have initiative. You've got to think about how to make things better constantly. Because remember, a company is like one big giant system or a chain, and you are a piece of that. You are important, and the company can't go on without you doing your part. I always said this in the restaurant world after I owned restaurants is, if the dishwasher's not doing their job, the entire system falls apart. Every single person, if the busser is not clearing tables, well, then there's no tables for new customers to sit down. Then the servers aren't able to help any customers. No one is doing anything, right? If the host doesn't seat customers, no one gets greeted. No servers know that they have a table to serve, right? Every single piece of the puzzle is so important. No matter what role you have, you are important. And if you have goals of getting somewhere higher, moving up, the tips that I listed for you, they'll work. They worked for me. I think they'll work for you too. If you have goals of doing your job every day, 9 to 5, going home and doing your thing and not moving up, that's cool too, right? But if you are interested in moving up, use these tips. I can't wait to hear how they worked for you. I would love to hear how they worked for you, because that would mean so much to me to know that this, is being used and is helping other people, which is my entire goal for this whole podcast to begin with. So let me know. But I hope this was beneficial to you, and hey, good luck on that future promotion.